class is about to get interesting, so that's why. So we've talked about the strings. We've talked about strings. We've talked about numbers. And we've talked about booleans. If I do something like this, var is coming or is coming home is equal to, is this a boolean or is this a string? What kind of data type is this? Line 5. What kind of data type is line 5? Is it a string or is it a boolean? And var today is 06. All right, line 7. What kind of data type is line 7? What kind of data type is line 7? Line 7. All right. Now, it doesn't matter what the data is. The moment it has quotes, automatically it becomes a string. Now, when you are coding on the back end, some developers will tell you, some front-end developers will tell you, I'm having issues with the date. Can you make it a string? I'm having issues with your booleans. Can you make it a string or can you make it a boolean? So you need to know when they are asking for a string or when they are asking for data type. Now we're going to get in deeper, but you should be able to recognize that so long as it has quotes, it's going to be a string. Now, most developers, a lot of them, they will send everything to you as a string. And we're going to come to that, the format of which data is transferred from the front end to the back end, like that. So they send everything as a string, but you know that we're going to come to that, but let me not jump. All right, today's class, we're going to talk about two more variable types. Two more variable types. It's called the null and undefined. Null and undefined. And what is null and what is undefined? If I define a variable and say variable today goals is equal to null, I know some people are used to the word null and void. Null and void. Yeah, but what is null? What is null? Let's assume that I have a container, a fine container. Maybe Bama container or popcorn, any container at all is beautiful, and I want to use it in my kitchen to store something inside. In this case now, that container is a variable, and what I want to store inside is a value. Now, I want to store something inside this container. There are two ways I can decide to use that container. Maybe I can get that container immediately and add something inside. Immediately, I have something and I'll add that inside. It could be salt, it could be sugar, it could be pepper, it could be anything. Those ones I'm adding now can be strings, numbers, or booleans. But if I take this container and I say this container now, I will keep it in my house as decoration. It will never, what's this say? Please, how do we make the code editor and the web browser appear on the same page? You just, will I say minimize? If you minimize, keep it side by side. That's how I do mine, but I don't know how anybody does theirs. So if you minimize, I keep both of them side by side. You get that. For now, my browser is not open and it's going to be open later. So minimize and keep it side by side. If you get this container and you say this container will never have any value inside, I want to keep it empty, maybe for decoration, maybe for punishment, whatever reason, that kind of variable is called a null. A null is a variable that will never have any value. That's what null is. So when you hear null and void, which is English word, it means it doesn't contain anything. It's just empty. It's just what? Empty. That is what a null is. Now, but when you come to undefined, if you take that same container and say, okay, this container, for now, I don't have a value or anything to put inside, But tomorrow or the following week, I am going to buy something and I will put inside. That kind of variable is defined as undefined. Undefined is a variable that at this moment, it doesn't have a value inside. But the next second, it can have a value. Tomorrow, it can have a value. Next tomorrow, it can have a value. That's what undefined is. So null, it will never have a value. Undefined, for now, it doesn't have a value, but later, it's going to have a value. An example of undefined is a football match. Initially, they all start at 0, 0. Later on, you change it. It has a value. Another one could be, there are other kind of ways you use an undefined. For now, it doesn't have a value, but later you want to add a value. So that's the difference between null and undefined. Exactly. What is the reason for creating a variable that will never have a value? It is your choice. It is how you want to use it. So some developers use it different ways. But for example, me, there's a way I might use null. For example, let's assume I am building a platform where you need to pay first before you buy airtime, or you need to pay before you buy electricity, or you need to pay before you get anything per se. So what it means is that I'm going to build my backend. One part of it is going to handle payment. Another part of it is going to credit you airtime or electricity token or anything that I want to give to you. So it's going to do that. And then, so if I'm going to do that, and then you try to make payment first. When you make payment, I'm going to either say payment is true or false when you open the payment gateway. If you open the payment gateway and you did not complete it, some people will open it and will not complete it. Some people open it and will not complete it. Some open it and complete it. So payment will either be true or false. That's one. But I can decide to say payment. I don't want to use true or false. Payment will either exist or it will not exist. So initially when you come to my page, I set your payment to be null. So if for any reason you try to bypass my payment, you try to do any mago to bypass the payment and jump to the API that is going to credit you, when it gets there, the payment value is null already. The moment you come to the site, I set the payment value to null. So by the time you try to jump and come over to this side, the payment value is null. It will check your payment value and it is null, and it will return you back to the home page. That's how I use it. So you can use that null to check anything for checks, but that's how I use it. That's just one example. Other people use it a different way. Okay. So that is for null. And yes, for checks. People, not just for checks. It could be for so many things. Like, I can't remember. I use null a lot, but I can't remember all the scenarios in which I use them. But this is just one of it. All right, we've talked about strings, we talked about numbers, we talked about booleans, null, and undefined. Now let's talk about something else. I tried bringing in const and let in the last class. Const and let. What is const? What is let? In JavaScript, before now, this is going to bring us to what we call ECMAScript. Another name in exams, especially foreign exams, another name for JavaScript is called ECMAScript or ES. So once you hear ECMAScript, you're talking about JavaScript, or ES, you're talking about JavaScript, or you hear ES5, ES5, ES6, ES7, any number at all, or ES 2014, ES 2015. You can hear so many things. So they are talking about different versions of JavaScript. JavaScript is called ECMAScript because there are different scripts that behave like ECMAScript. And JavaScript is the only script that behaves more. It has the characteristics of ECMAScript the more. So they refer to it as ECMAScript. So some people call it JavaScript, some call it ECMAScript, some call it ES5. You hear me say a lot of ES5 and ES6. So ES just refers to JavaScript. ES5 is just the version 5, version 6, version 7. ES 2014, the year that version came out. ES 2015, the year that version came out. Just like that. So why before now, a lot of persons do not like JavaScript. They will tell you, if you want to build something, go with Java. Just go and do Java. Just go and do Java, because Java is typed. Java is orderly. Java behaves well and all of that. Yes, at that time, JavaScript wasn't good and didn't have that quality at that time. And before I go for that, please, there is a difference between Java and JavaScript. They are not the same thing. Java is a different programming language. JavaScript is a different programming language. JavaScript was not gotten from Java, and Java was not gotten from JavaScript. The two of them don't know each other. Java can be used to build backend or mobile apps. JavaScript can be used to build front-end websites, mobile apps, and also backends. The two of them do not relate in any way. They are two different things. All right, back to JavaScript. So at that time, people don't like JavaScript. They were using Java more. And some people mistook it to say, oh, Java is JavaScript, but they are not the same thing. But right now, JavaScript has upgraded from ES5 to ES6, which is more better. Even they have upgraded JavaScript to have TypeScript. Now, I write a lot of TypeScript, and most of you will be forced to write TypeScript when you get your first jobs. Don't be scared, they're just the same thing. So JavaScript was upgraded, and it can be used to build anything comfortably for production level, and nothing will go wrong like that. So why am I bringing in this? So at that time, JavaScript was having issues, and I'm going to explain most of those issues. In JavaScript, there's something called scope. You're going to be seeing this in interviews or so. What is scope? Scoping or function scope or variables, any way they put it. So long as you hear scope. What is scope in JavaScript? I'll give you a scenario. For example, let's assume all of us live in the same compound. If we live in the same compound, there's every possibility that we're going to be using the same tank, like water from the same tank. Now, because we are using water from the same tank, can I come into your compound? Let's say, can I come into your room, your kitchen, and fetch water and say, after all, we are using the same water. It's coming from the same tank, so I can fetch water from your kitchen? No, I cannot do that. Cannot connect to video again. Is anybody online and can connect to my video? Anybody online and can connect to my video? Yes, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to explain the scope. No. I have not left const and scope. I want to explain to you what scope is, and then you understand the const and the let. Like that. All right, what is scope? So if I am in that compound, we are all in the same compound. I cannot come to your kitchen and fetch water. I fetch from my own kitchen. But if we have a tap outside, anybody can fetch water from that tap. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to stop anybody. You can fetch water from that tap and use it to wash your car or wash clothes or do anything. So at that case now, that tap that is outside can serve anybody and everybody. That particular one is what we refer to as something being globally scoped. So globally scoped means it can serve anybody. But the water in my kitchen, the tap in my kitchen, is meant for me and the people in my house alone. Like that. So this var keyword has a problem with scoping. Meaning that if you define a variable with the var keyword, somebody from another kitchen will call it and it will respond. Somebody from another kitchen will call it and it will respond. It doesn't matter whether it is a global variable or it is a function variable or it is a class variable. So it does not know when to stop, or it doesn't know the limit it has, or will I say the confined where it's supposed to stop, like that. That was the issue with var, which led to the introduction of const and let. So JavaScript, we then decided, don't use var again to define your variable. Always use const. So when you put const, we know that you are trying to define a variable. But there is one addition here. Var keyword, when you define a variable, for example, if I come here, I can say the same variable name, I will change it here. You see that these two variables are the same name, but they are not the same data type. They are also not the same value, and there is no error. So this was an error before. You can define a variable with a name, and maybe 2 months into the building of that project, you've forgotten that you have used that name. Then you call that name again and assign it a new variable. Before you know it, you have conflict in your code base, and you will not even know where you defined that first variable. So var keyword was given that issue, which is another reason why we decided to use const. Something is wrong. I want to believe it's not from my end because it's a little bit stable here, but sorry, please check it out. Can any other person see my screen and it's okay, working fine? All right. So in an interview, because I've also asked the same questions, I've seen my friends interview people and ask them the same question. They will ask you, what is one issue or two issues or issues with the var keyword? I've mentioned two. There may be others, but two is enough. One, it is not scoped. It has a problem with scoping, whether function scope, whether global is scoped. Two, you can always reassign the value, which is not supposed to be. You can reassign the value like that. So that was the issue. They then decided that we use const or let. So I can redefine this variable here and assign it a value here and say the value is 56, like this. But if I try to do this again and say the value should be 56, which we know that of both strings, and I save this, I'll save it, open my code base. Sorry, not this one. Live server rather. I want to open live server. So with live server, copy this, close it, come here, paste this here, hit enter. All right. Yeah. So I'll open, you see, I minimized mine. You can go ahead and minimize yours however you want. So I can open inspect. On my inspect, go to console. I should have errors in my console, which, yes. So if you look at my console here, this error is coming from line 22. Line 22 is not this one. So if you noticed, I used this same name for the 4 of them. I use the same name for 4 of them. But the error message is coming from where? Line 22. Line 22 says uncaught syntax error. Identifier is coming home, has already been declared. So if I use const, it will be difficult for me to reassign a value. It will throw error and I will know. Like that. So I will know. So const means constant. That value is not supposed to change. Constant. So when you are creating a variable with const, that variable is a constant value. It will not change. Yes, the class is recorded, but let me just confirm again. Yes, it's being recorded. So that is for const. And then they say, just in case you want to create a value or a variable that the value should change. Let's say the beginning of a match, the value started 0, 0, later it became 1, 1, 1, 2, 2. You cannot define that kind of variable with const because the value will not change. So you use let. Now, the idea is this. We stopped using var and move to const and let. Always use const for your variable so that it will tell you if you have used that variable name. Unless the value needs to be updated, then you use let. For example, if I remove this and save it, remove this and save it, my error should be gone. It's gone. Now I can come here and say let ARR be equal to 4, and then I console log ARR and save it. If I check, I will see 4 in my console, but I can come here again and say ARR is now equal to 90 and save it. If you check here, you will then see that the value now is 90. So this means that if I use let, the value can be reassigned. It can change, but not a different data type. The same data type, but its value can change. But I can't do this with const. If I change this to const and save it, I come back, you see that it says uncaught type error, assignment to a constant variable. You are trying to reassign a constant variable, so it is not allowed. If you define your variable with const, it means that variable is going to be a constant variable. It will not change the value. But if you use let, then you can reassign the values later. So now, do we understand const and let, and when to use const and when to use let? If you do, please drop a thumbs up so that we continue. If you understand the difference between const and let, and you will not get confused seeing me use const and let. All right, I want to see from, what's her name? Is it what's that name again? What is lady's name again? Please, I don't. Is it that, are you Uzoma? Let me hear from you, Uzoma. Are you in the class? Can you hear me, or are you the person having network issues? Uzoma, please unmute yourself, ask your question. Please go ahead. Please.
I can hear you.
You can hear me.
Yeah, is the difference between the cost and the let. I understand the val, but my network just cut off after you explained the val that it doesn't respect scope and it can be reassigned. My network cut off, so I didn't understand.
All right. This is what we're gonna do. For let and const, you use both of them to declare a variable, but this is const. This is short for constant. So it means that if you define your variable with const, that variable you cannot reassign the value again, which is what I'm trying to do here. I defined a variable called ARR and assign the value to be 4. Then I'm coming here again to change the value of ARR to become 90, and I'm logging what should be the value of ARR. So if I come to my console, it's throwing an error on uncaught type error. It says assignment to constant variable. So you are trying to reassign a constant variable. But if I change this const to let and save it, you see the error is gone because let doesn't have an issue. So always define your variables with const unless you know that that variable, the value will change. Then you define it with let. That is it. So somebody was asking, what if we change it? Let's say we assign this to be this and we change this to become a string, David Samson. Now I haven't done this because I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I don't see any error here in my code base because let will allow you reassign the value. It will allow you reassign the value, but this is actually not what you should do. You only change the same data type, the same data type, the same. But if you want to go ahead and change the variable, the data type entirely, is entirely up to you. People might do that. You know, you can move from null, being null, to true. Payment can be null initially, which is empty, and then later payment becomes true, which you might want to do. So you can't do that if you want, but I keep it to the same data type. All right, so we understand const, we understand let, we understand all of this. Let's proceed to writing more JavaScript code. And in the absence of any questions, so I will comment all of these out. I'm going to define a variable here, say const first name. First name. Now it doesn't matter, it's not compulsory that you must use capital letters. If you want to go this way, it's your choice, but I like using capital letter for readability so that anybody who's seeing it understand what I'm writing. Const last name is equal to Samson, and const, let's say age, is equal to 80, and const is married is equal to, sorry, I missed this. Okay, I can say false, and then const payment is equal to null, like this. And then I would then say let successful. All right, you see it here, I have defined a variable with let, but I did not assign any value. So I just said let and then stop at the variable name. That is how you define an undefined variable, because right now the variable name exists. You have created the variable. You can come later and say successful is equal to true, or successful is equal to false, because an undefined doesn't have a value initially, but later it is going to carry a value. So that is undefined. So here, these are the data types we are going to work with. There might be other data types, but for me, throughout my career so far, I have only maintained 5. There are the symbols, there could be others later, but I've worked with just these 5 data types. Now, if you understand these 5 data types, we can then start writing code with them. So if you understand these 5 data types, please drop a thumbs up so that we can actually proceed if you understand these 5 data types. All right, let's proceed. So we've talked about string. Yeah, go ahead.
What of a float, like decimal data type?
They are off for now. We are grouping everything into numbers.
All right.
Yeah. So any other question? All right, thumbs up. Let's continue. So we've talked about strings. Now it's time to talk about strings methods. String methods and properties. Now in JavaScript, so it is only let we can use to declare an undefined. Yes, the reason is because undefined value, the value will change. So initially it doesn't have a value, but later you're going to assign a value to it. So you cannot use const to define undefined. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. So in JavaScript, when you hear methods and properties, it's not difficult. So for example, string properties. String properties are those things that you can use to identify it. For example, what are the properties of a HP laptop? It can be black. It can have the thickness is this, the color is white. So those things you can actually use to identify it. That is what the properties are. what is the property of a dog? The dog is hairy, the dog has 4 legs, the dog has this. So those are the properties, what you can use to identify it. That's properties. The methods. Method is what it can do. For example, the methods of a dog would be a dog can bark, a dog can run, a dog can eat. Like, those are the things it can do. So when I say strings methods and string properties, what are those things that the string can do? That is the properties of a string. Then that's the method rather. Then the properties are going to be what you can identify it by. All right. So without wasting time, I'm going to come here and type string properties W3 schools reference. Now we're going to be using W3 schools for this one. I'm going to open this. Here they have a list of things, a long list. So these are different string methods and properties. Now somebody dropped a comment and said, where is it? I can't find it. So I was unable to navigate to console based on yesterday's class. Jeremiah, have you been in this class? But you can always rewatch the videos and you find it. So if you look at this, I'm going to drop this link for you. Let me do that in resources here. You can always find these links to reference it. All of these things could be what you will use, but you may not use all of them. I don't think I have used all of them. We were in questions. I don't think I've used all of them. I haven't. So when you see that thing has bracket is a method. So this art is a method. Character art is a method. Character code art is a method. It is a method because it has bracket in front. Constructor is a property because it doesn't have brackets. It doesn't. Length is a property because it doesn't have a property. But includes is a method because it has brackets. So that is how you can tell which of these is a property and which one is a method. Trim is a method. So let's use them. I have first name defined here. So what I can do is say console log for me first name dot to uppercase, and then I add bracket. See, this bracket I'm adding is not the bracket that comes with the console log. If you look at it, so this bracket I'm adding here is not the bracket that comes with the console log bracket. It's different. This is the bracket for this method. So what is this going to do? If I save it and come here, you see it is printing out David all in capital letters. So that is what to uppercase will do. If you come to the reference, to uppercase here says returns a string converted to uppercase letters. That is what to uppercase will do. So when I call a string, this string is stored here. When I call it and call dot to uppercase, it means take the value that is inside this first name, and that is David. Take it and turn all of it to uppercase. Now I can write these things in uppercase first, and then come here and write console log again. Say take the first name, cut to lowercase on it. Now I'm calling to lowercase. So it doesn't matter whether it has been uppercase before, and save it. So when I come here, you see it is printing out everything in lowercase. When do you use this? You use this because you cannot control how users type. Most times, some users will be typing some capital letters, some upper letters, some this, some that. If it's their password, you can allow it. Because their password can have capital letters, small letters, and all of that. You can allow that. But for other areas, maybe their email, maybe their first name, their last name, and all of those details, you want to save them in a uniform way. It is either everybody's name is in capital letters or everybody's name is in small letters, or you can write a little JavaScript to capitalize just the first letters. You can do that. So when you are accepting the user's name, or if the front end is sending you the user's name, you try to make sure you save their names in small letters if that is what your company wants, or in capital letters if that's also what your company wants. Because by the time somebody says they want to see your data, they want to see data, they want to read the dashboard or anywhere they are displaying the data, and they are seeing some people's name, some letters are capital letters, some are small letters, some are like this and like that, it will look as if you, the backend, you don't know what you are doing. So you can call a method to uppercase, to lowercase, to take that particular value and then, save it how you want to save it. There is another one, console.log rather, and then take the first name. I'm working with the strings now, dot includes. So what includes does is I can check whether this first name the person typed, does it include a particular character or a particular letter. So if I say like this, capital D, I'm trying to check, does their first name include capital letter D? So if it includes, it will say true. If it does not include, it will say false. So if I save it and come here, you see that line 49 says true. Why? Because the first name includes capital letter D. But if I change it and say, does it include Z? What do you think will happen? What would line 49 say? If I write first name dot includes Z, what do you think will happen? First name dot includes Z. False. Now I want to believe we all understand. That's what I'm asking generally. Because we are trying to check the value that is saved inside first name. Does it include Z? So if I save it and come here, it says false. It does not include Z. That's the case. Now there are other ones you may want to use, which for now we may not look at all of them, but at your spare time you can use them. Now this length is very, very important. We use length. So if I say console log, or let me do my shortcut, CLG first name dot length. Length is a property because it doesn't come with bracket. So if I save it and then come here, you'll see it gives me the number of letters that are here. So if you count it, this is 1. So there are 8 letters, but let me just write this one. So my name is 5 letters. If I reduce these spaces, it is actually 5 letters. So it is going to return a number of characters here. So if I check, it says the length is 5. But if I go ahead and add space here, and save it, now you see that the length has increased to 7, because length is going to also count the spaces. So this is where issues come in for backend developers, especially when you are working with users' password. If they mistakenly type in space in the middle of a character, a text, it becomes an issue. They cannot type that password. Maybe they made that out of a mistake or something. I don't know if you've experienced it before. You type a password, you are sure of what you typed, but it is not working. That is maybe because there is space in it. But if they add that space before the letter or after the letter, line 40, what's line 40? Line 40 this is undefined. Line 40 is undefined. Undefined means currently you are trying to create a variable which is called successful, but for now you are not assigning any value. You're going to assign value later, but for now, you've not assigned value. That's undefined. And you cannot define it with const, because const means this is a constant variable and you have to assign a value now. You have to assign a value now, because the value cannot come in later for const. But for let, the value can come in later. All right. So I was saying, if they add a space before they start typing, or after they finish typing, you as the backend, you can help them. So before you save their password, you call something called trim, CLG, and then here you say first name dot trim is a method, and save it. So if I come here, you see that this first one is displaying the spaces here, but this one is removing the spaces in front. So please, what is the shortcut for console? Now for my laptop, my VS Code is upgraded. So once I just type CLG, it shows console log. It may not work for every VS Code, but if you update your VS Code, it should get you this. CLG is the shortcut I use. So before you save user's password, you call trim on it. What will trim do? Let's go to the reference. I saw it here. Trim returns a string with removed white spaces. White spaces means it's going to remove the spaces before the first letter and the spaces after the first letter. But if there is a space inside the letters, there is nothing you can do about that one. You don't want to tamper with that one. Even though there is something you can do, you don't want to tamper with that one, because at that point you cannot tell whether it was intentional or it was not intentional. So you don't want to do anything. But before you save their password, you need to call .trim on it to remove spaces. Maybe the person entered, was trying to test their keyboard before they started typing or any of that. Like that. So that's for it. So there are so many data types here you can use. We may not define all of them today. We're going to come back to them maybe later, and so on and so forth. But we can proceed to another one. Numbers. Let's talk about numbers. I want to believe you know what length is. But if you don't know, please don't. There is no need cramming anything. You have them here. When I was writing my first project, a real estate project, they paid me money. That was the first time they are paying me huge sum amount of money at once into my account. I did not sleep that day. Every time I was busy checking my account. Every time I was checking. It wasn't because I'm scared the money is going to get missing. No. I was checking my account because seeing the money there was giving me joy, because I had no idea what I want to build. But if I was seeing the money, it was giving me joy. It was giving me motivation, like that. So that's why. So, but let's proceed to numbers. Numbers, and all of that. So for numbers, there is unlimited things you can do with JavaScript numbers. Now, as a matter of fact, JavaScript is the owner of calculator. You can program a calculator with JavaScript. A lot of newbies do it. People do it, and you can program calculator. And once they are punching the letters, the calculator is working. You can do that if you want. So JavaScript handles calculations in seconds. And that is why, let's not go there, but let's go there. People who know JavaScript very well, it'd be difficult to put them in a mathematics CBT exam. Because if you give them the laptop and they know JavaScript very well, they will come out with flying colors. That's one. But let's not go out into it. So what can you do with numbers? I can come here and define a variable A, assign it to be 4. And come here, create another variable B, assign it to be 2. Come here, create another variable C. Now, the reason why I am creating these variables with one word is because you understand what variables are already. In your real life project, you're not going to be creating variable names with one letter. You're going to write full letters. And that's why I gave you that task to write 5 words names so that you know it doesn't have to be one word. So, but I'm using one letter so that I don't have to start thinking of names to come up with. I can come here and say const answer is equal to A plus B plus C, and say down here console log answer and see. So for this we can use plus, minus, division, multiplication, raised to power, and modules like this. There is pi too. There are so many of them. So I'm defining a variable. I define variable A, variable B, variable C, and I create a new variable saying answer, and the value of answer will be the sum of A, B, and C, and save this. So if I save it and come to my browser, you see that on line 63 I have 9. Now I can comment these ones out so that we don't get it mixed up. Come here, I have 9. Now I can do any mathematics I want. I can also come here and change it and say const answer 2 is equal to A times B plus C raised to power A. Sorry, this is supposed to be plus. Yes. So when you see just one asterisk is multiplication. Double asterisk is raised to power. So I can do this math, A times B plus C raised to power A, and then decide to console log answer 2. And if I save it, I come here 83. Now, mind you, I'm not doing calculations because as a programmer, you need to know calculations. No. You may end up building your whole career as a developer and you will not even do this much mathematics calculations at all. It's very possible. But if you are going to be working in fintech, where we talk about finance, talk about profit and loss, margin, indemnity, so many calculations are involved in fintech. If you're going to be working in edutech, there are small calculations where you want to work with students' scores, students' data, just small calculations. If you're going to be working in real estate, e-commerce, they just do 1 plus 1. You are adding the amount together, nothing much. It's just adding the amount together. So depending on the industry you're working, if you're going to be working in accounting, you need too much maths. If you're going to be working in engineering company, you need too much maths. If you're going to be working in the medical sector, you don't need maths at all. You don't. So depending on the sector where you'll be working. So, but we're going to do maths, not because you must know it. No, we're just doing it because you don't know where you're going to fall into. This is maths. And I can also go ahead and elaborate on this. Say answer 3 rather, because I can't use the same variable names, will be bracket open A divided by B multiply bracket open C raised to power 4 plus, what is it called? What do I want to do? Plus C again. And then come here and say minus 400. Maybe not 400 because it's going to bring out, going to bring out small letter, minus 3. So I can do this. Think of any formula at all, like this one called quadratic equations or almighty formula. Any formula at all, you can write it with JavaScript and it's going to produce the answer in seconds. Like that. Just put in the value, it's going to find it for you. So if I save this and then come here, I have 165. Like that. So any mathematics you want to solve, you can get it if you want, if you know the formulas and the values already. But if you want to go a step further into maths, I can say const ddd is equal to, once you call capital letter maths like this, math, you are telling JavaScript, now I want to go deeper into mathematics. I hit dot. It's going to bring out all the things you can do with JavaScript. For example, there is logarithm, there is pi, there is square root, there is a cosine, a cos, a sine, a tan. Anything you want to do in JavaScript with mathematics, it is going to bring out all of them when you want to go deeper into maths. So if I say maths this times 3, so I'm saying math.pi, give me the value of pi multiplied by 3, maybe raised to power 2. For example, when you say the area of a circle is equal to, for those who don't know math, sorry, area of a circle, I also don't know math myself. Area of a circle is equal to 2 pi r, or pi r square, or maybe the area of circumference 2 pi r, so on and so forth. So you can do the pi, get the value of pi like this, and then do your radius to be 3 raised to power 2. That's pi r square. Radius is 3 raised to power 2, and it gives me the answer, which is ddd. So if I say ddd and save it, come here, I get 28.22222, and so on and so forth. So that is math. That is deeper math in JavaScript. But before we proceed, any question? Any question so far? If there is no question, drop a thumbs up so we can proceed. If there is no question. All right, we've done math. We may come back to it later. Definitely we will. Let's proceed to something else. I'll comment this out and save. There is something called concatenation. Concatenation. Concatenation means joining. You want to join something together. That's concatenation. Joining. That's for concatenation. Joining. Let's say I will come back again. I will just copy these things. You know what? Cut it out because I'm not using it here. I'll bring them here. I'll paste this here. So I can join variables together. I can join them together to form a real sentence, concatenating them to form a sentence. So what I can do is a const message is equal to, here, I say I need to start with a string. My name is, come here and do plus first name, then do plus again. My name is this, space, and then plus last name, space, and then plus bracket. I am plus, let's get plus age, years old. Now, this is throwing error because there's no plus here, shift plus. So I'm trying to join variables together to form a sentence on the back end. Can we calm down? Can we calm down? And calm down. So I'm trying to join variables together to form a sentence. And in doing that, this value can be anything. This value can be anything. This value can be anything. But in all of it, yeah, we need space. But I want you to see it. Let's see the errors before we know whether we need space or not. So if I save this and come here, I'm not actually console logging the message. So I need to console log the message. To see the message, you must console log the message. Are you kidding me? I'm not getting it here. My live server just stopped, which is not supposed to be. So I'm going to start it again. Copy this. I don't like using this browser. Paste this. Continue. So yeah, now I have my name is the way I wrote the variable, the same way. Something, but there is no space here. There is no space. I am, there is no space. The space is required here. So what I can do is come back here, add a space here, then come here, possibly add a space, add the plus here so that they don't join together. Come here, add a space, come here, add a space, come here, add a space. So if I save this and come back, now it looks better. You can read it. My name is David Sampson. I am 80 years old. This one is done this way with ES5. ES5 means a version of JavaScript. So with ES5, I can do this. But there's a better way I do it, and it looks cleaner. So I can say const message 2 is equal to backticks. So what I'm trying to do now is to concatenate the string using string literals with ES6. ES5 is the old way of doing it, which is this concatenation with plus. But with ES6, I can use backticks to do the same thing, and it will look better. So if I come here and say backticks, anywhere I want to use this variable, I put it inside dollar and curly braces. Anywhere I want to use a variable, I put it inside dollar and curly braces. For example, the same variable, I'll say my space name is, I put dollar, curly braces, first name. Then continue, dollar again, curly braces, last name. Then continue, maybe add comma if I want. I am dollar curly braces age, continue again, years old, add dot. So these two things will do the same thing. They will do the same thing. So this is how you concatenate with ES6, and this is how you concatenate with ES5. Now, any which one you choose to do, both of them work fine. So I can console log message 2 and message 1. So save this and save. If I come here, the same thing I'm saying here, my name is David Sampson, I am 80 years old. My name is David Sampson, and I am 80 years old. The same thing. If I come here and change to maybe Sarah and save it, automatically it changes. So string concatenations, we use it most times to concatenate variables, and the variables can be anybody. For example, if you log into your dashboard, it says hello, your name. That is a string concatenation. Hello, your first name, or welcome, your first name, or hi, your first name. They are just concatenating a string, which is hi, and a variable name, which is either your first name or your last name. That's how it is used as a greeting message on the dashboard. It can also be used on certificates too. As you are typing your name, the system is generating your certificate for you, inputting your certificate, your variable name on the certificate, and it's coming out like that. It can also be used to generate images that is already framed. Everybody has the same images, but the pictures are different. It's just concatenating variables like that. You can use it in any case, in any situation, you can use it. So that is string concatenation. Any question before we proceed? Do you have any question? How is it generated from multiple names? Multiple names. Now, for multiple names, you are not the one interested in doing multiple names, because a single person will not have multiple names. A backend runs for everybody at the same time. So if you put your name, it picks only your name. Another person puts their name, it picks that name. So as names are imputed, it picks that particular name. We're going to understand all of this JavaScript under the hood later, but just know that it takes one name at a time. As the name keeps changing, one name at a time. And in general, as a backend developer, your job is simply to first accept the data that the front end is sending to you. It doesn't matter how they send it, what they are sending, you accept the data. That's the first thing you do. Then do your logic with the data and send back a response. So that's why, so they don't send everybody's name at the same time. Even if they do, we can always handle that. If you check on my own this thing, before one, my keyboard, before one, you see a symbol there that looks slanted. That's backticks. Before the number one, you'll see a symbol there that says it's slanted. That is backticks. Yes, backticks. So you click on it, it will come out two. If one comes out, you click on it again. You need two of them to go. All right, let's proceed to something else. We've learned strings, we've learned numbers, we've learned booleans, we've learned nulls, we've learned null, undefined. We have also talked about the different properties of a strings and also the methods, what it can do, uppercase, lowercase, include, string, and so on and so forth. We want to talk about calculations in mathematics, like a little add and plus and minus and so on and so forth. We've also talked about string concatenations. And let's take it a step further. Let's say you are the webmaster for a secondary school that has a website and they want to save people's names. Of course, you're going to save everybody's name, the students' names, the teacher's name, the proprietor's name, the names of the books, names of tags, decks, whatever they have as data, you want to save them. But for now, let's take student's name. JSS1, there may be 50 students. You want to save their names. JSS2, there may be 50 students. You want to save their name. JSS3, SS1, SS2, SS3, and so on and so forth. How do you save their names? Do you create individual variables for everybody? Student 1, const, student 1, his name is so and so. Const, student 2, his name is so and so. Const, student 3, his name is so and so. Do you do that? So how do we create a variable that can store multiple values? How do we create a variable that can store multiple values. Exactly. So we use what we call arrays. Arrays is a variable that can store multiple values. For example, I'll say const JSS1. I'm trying to define a variable. The variable name is JSS1, and this JSS1 student, is not just one person. There are so many students. So if I put square bracket is what we refer to as array. Square bracket, arrays, square bracket. So I can say JSS1. For example, JSS1, and I'll say David space Samson is in JSS1, comma, I'll say number 2, Mary, number 3, Jude, and so on and so forth. If you look at it, this is a string, this is also a string, this is also a string, but the three of them are stored just inside one variable, JSS1. So you can store all the names of students in JSS1 inside one array. It doesn't matter whether it's 50, it's 100, it's 1 million, 2 million, all of them, their names can be inside one array, provided they are in the same class. Please, sir, you asked me a question. Why did I start my variable name with capital letters? Sorry, my network was giving me issues. So the question now is, was it wrong? Would I encounter problems along the way? It is not wrong if you want to name it with capital letters, but we use capital letters for special variables. When you know that this variable is a special variable, for example, the password to your database is a special variable. The token that you use to verify users is a special variable. The URL to your database is a special variable. So once we see capital letters, we know that that variable is a special variable. But otherwise, every other variable is a small variable. That's a normal variable. Small letter for a normal variable. But capital letter would mean that is a special variable, because I may not see the value. Of course, I don't need to see the value. I just need to know the variable name. Let's assume you're working in a code base and it has so many files, and in each file you have so many lines of code, but somehow your eye catches a variable name on line 2001 and it is a capital letter. Line 2001, you are not seeing the variable value, but because it starts with a capital letter, you will just assume that that is a special variable. So that becomes a misunderstanding, because I saw a capital letter, I treated it as a special variable, not knowing that it is not a special variable. So that's why we don't start with capital letters. You use capital letter, and we're going to come to that. Otherwise, use small letters. So let me just define a few variables. Const sorry, not capital letters. Const yy is equal to an array of 1, 12. Sorry, I was going to type just one number here. 0.8. What is wrong? 0.9, 76.7, 1000, 567, and so on and so forth. I can also come here and define const tt is equal to an array of true, false, yy, 45, 7.9, and so on and so forth. So what is a special variable? Yeah, we're going to come to that. I just explained, I gave you an example. Now, as a backend developer, you will have you will have the password to your database. You have the URL to your database. You have maybe the account number of your company. You're going to have the password to their email. You are going to have their email. You're going to have their pass keys to their financial. If they're working with any bank, You're going to have the secret token to that bank. You're going to have so many variables. Those variables are special variables. Nobody is supposed to see the value. We're going to come to that. But for now, let's just go with the normal variables we're working with. So here I have an array that contains only strings. So it is called a string array. It's called a string array. Then if you look here, I have a variable that contains only numbers. So it is called a numbers array. Numbers array. Then here, this is called a mixed array. Sorry, let's just leave it like that. A mixed array. So you can have a string array that contains just strings. You can have numbers array that contains only numbers. You can also have a Boolean array that contains only Booleans. Or you can have a mixed array that you mix all of them like that. So this is me mixing, creating different arrays. My question now is, do you know how, or is there anybody that cannot create arrays? Arrays is very, very important when it comes to the back end. You are going to be working with so many arrays. As a matter of fact, you will be creating arrays for the front end to use. So arrays should be the least of your problem as a back-end developer. So please tell me you know how to create an array. And if you see an array, you will recognize an array. All right. So do we know how to create an array, and can we proceed? All right. All right. All right. All right. So the same way that strings has properties, arrays also have properties and methods. Arrays also have properties and methods. And you remember when I explained what property means and what method means is, properties is what you can describe it by, what you define it by, what it is. But a method is what it can do, the things it can do. The array can do this, the array can do that. So you can define that. So if I come here and still search again, change this from strings to arrays, hit enter. Arrays, properties. There's a list of what the array can do. Now, most of these things are the same thing a string does. For example, you see the includes here. Yeah, the method is the behavior, the way it behaves. So most of these things we are also seeing in a string, but some of them not. For example, includes check if an array contains the specified element. For example, I can come here and say JSS1 console log for me space JSS1 dot includes. So I can check whether it includes something like Mary. So if I save this and come here, it says true. I think I have this thing displayed. Let me comment this out and save. So it says true because it has it. Yes, sorry, let me just add this link. I missed that. Yeah. So there are so many properties of an array which you will not do all of them. Now, some of them we're not going to even talk about them today. We're going to talk about them in our next class, like for each. Where's the next one? The map. a few of them. We're not going to talk about them because those ones, now other ones could be important, but those ones are more important. And you can only do them when you understand better. So, but for other things, check them out, see what they do. We can actually concatenate arrays. I think so. Concat is here. Yeah, concat is here. Joins arrays and joins array and a return array with the joined array. For example, I can join two arrays. So if I say console log JSS1 dot concat, I want to concatenate JSS1 with the TT. So JSS1 is this one. TT is this one. So this is going to return a new array, but this new array will contain the contents that are in JSS1 and the contents that are inside TT. So that's what concatenate does. It's concatenate, it joins them together. So if I save this and come here, you see now it has the contents in JSS1 and the content in the TT. But there's something we are missing, which is supposed to be the first thing. Console log JSS1 dot length. So length is a property. The same way string has length, arrays also have length too. So you can always count the number of items in an array using length. For example, if I check it here, it says the length of this JSS1 is 3. Why? Because the items in JSS1 are just 3 items. If I decide to count YY, which is this, I say YY, give me the length of YY, and come here, it says 6. Why? The number of items in YY is 6. And I can do more than this. For example, I have JSS1. I can add to it and I can remove from it. For example, we have a JSS1 class. Some new students were added to the class. And you have already created their names already before now. How do you add the names of the new student into that array? So we can do push. So I can call JSS1 dot push. Push is going to add to the array. Now, as a matter of fact, let's look at the documentation and explain them. Yeah, where is push? So here we have push. If you call dot push, adds a new element to the end. This is very important. Push adds it to the end of the array and returns the new array. So for example, I can push this and add justice. If I come here and console log JSS1 again, JSS1, and save it. So now you see that JSS1 now contains justice. I can push more items to it, say government, and save it. Then console log JSS1 again. If I come here, you see this array now has government inside it. So push is going to add to the end. Push is going to add to the end. Now the next one is on shift. On shift is going to add to it, but at the beginning, not at the end, at the beginning. So if I come here and say JSS1 dot on shift, and then pass in gamble. Please don't gamble. Gamble and save. So if I come here, you see now gamble is the first item because we used on shift. So, but most times we don't use on shift because we want to maintain orderliness. We always use push because we want to know the first item that was in that array. We don't want to change the order. We want to know the first item that is there. So we don't always use push. But if you want to, you can always use on shift if you want to, but we always use push. Then if you want to remove from it, you can use pop. So JSS1 dot pop. Now, what will pop do? If you come to the documentation and you read pop, pop removes the last element in the array. Pop removes the last element in the array. If for any reason you want to reduce the length of the array, you can call pop. Pop is going to reduce the last element. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. And keep this thing like this. Let me bring this one down and here, paste it here. Looking at this my array, what do you think line 109 is going to print or console log? What do you think is going to console log? What are the items? What are the elements that it is going to console log? What do you think it is going to console log? Write your answer, let me see. What do you think line 109 is going to console log? What elements will be in there? Say it will remove the last 3 elements. Yes. How many elements will remain? Somebody say null. Somebody say empty array. What do you think it's going to do? Says the names on line 994, Gamble and David, David, Samson, Mary, and Jude. Okay. Mind you, the array has 3 elements or 3 items, and I am adding justice, and I also added government. Then I added gamble. But again, I removed the first one, removed the second one, removed the third one. So what do you think will happen? The original array, Mary and David, Gamble, David, Samson. All right, so let's see what it will do. I think I've saved this. No, I haven't. Save it and then see. So line 109 printed Gamble, David, and Mary. Why? Because number one, we already have David, Samson, Mary, and Jude. Then we're going to have justice here at the end. We then have government here at the end. And then we have gamble at the beginning. So if I remove the first one, I'll be removing government. Remove the second one, I'll be removing justice. Remove the third one, I'll be removing, I think it's Jude. Yeah, I'll be removing Jude. So I'm left with Mary, David, Samson, and gamble. So that's why I have gamble, David, Samson, and Mary. Yes, that's JavaScript. It's a little tricky. So push. So this is what the backend is. Backend is thought process, thinking. Some people would think, oh, you are just on your laptop looking at it. You're not doing anything. No. I'm spending hours thinking, because that is what happens on the backend. People who know that you spend hours thinking more than you are actually writing the code. Sometimes the more you look, the less you see. And a lot happens. If you come to that time, money can get missing. Money get missing, you're going to be held accountable. Or maybe not. Anyone works. So that is the backend. All right, guys. Any question so far? Yes. On shift was used to add So any question so far, strings, numbers, booleans, null, undefined, arrays, pop. Now there are so many array methods here. Anyone you want to use, anything you want to do with an array, you can always come here and read. Now, but some of them we're going to treat them later because they are called higher array methods. Higher array method means they are higher than the normal methods. So we're going to treat them later and find out how to use them. But anyone you want to read about, just come here, check it out, and you'll see what it does. There is to reverse here. To reverse, don't worry, let me not just say anything. All right, guys. The question here says, please explain on shift. On shift is going to add a new item to the beginning of the array. While push is going to add a new item to the end of the array. What if the array was empty? Yes, you can define an array that was empty. For example, I can say const 0000 is equal to an empty array. This is an empty array. Then I can still call that 00 and say dot push. That will add a new item to it, which can be like this. So and save it. Oh, sorry, I removed that, and then save it. If I come here and console log the same 00, then after that, then come here again and console log 00. So here I have an empty array. I'm console logging it. Here I am pushing to that empty array, and I'm also console logging it. So I want to see what is inside before I push and after I push. So if I come here and check, before I push, it was empty. After I push, now it has one value or one item, like that. So you can define an empty array. As a matter of fact, most times when we begin to write our codes, we start with an empty array. For example, when the backend for the CareerEx, no student has registered, nobody registered. So the array there, the names of students, is going to be an empty array. As the first person registers, you push their name into the array. As the second person registers, you push their name into the array. That's how it works, just like that. But we're going to get to all of that. You will see it and you will do it. But you need to understand these little data types and how we use them. Are we meant to know all the methods? No. You are not meant to know all the methods. Even me, myself, I don't know all the methods. Sometimes I get confused. I actually always come back and check. Sometimes the method I want does not even exist here. The thing I want to do is not even here. I'm going to look for a way to combine 1 and 2 together, or maybe write a new JavaScript to create something that will do exactly what I want. But you're not expected to know all of them. But you should have this documentation so that you can always come back and check for anything. Explain the unshift. Unshift adds. Just know that you want to add something, but at the beginning. You want to add, but at the beginning. So what if we want to delete a specific item? Yes, you can. I think that's but I'm going to leave that. That's one of the assignments, so I'm not going to explain that. They are all here. You can always come here. You can always print out. Now let me do one. I have this array. I can always pick out one item, only one. If I come here, you see that this array, this console log is showing me that this array has 8 items inside. That's why 8 is showing here. Here, this is showing that this array has 3 items. That is why 3 is showing here. If I open it up, you see that the indexes are also displayed. David Sampson is at index 0 because JavaScript starts counting as 0, not 1. JavaScript starts counting at 0. This is at 0. This is at 1. This is at index 2. This is at index 3, and so on and so forth. The same thing here. If I open this up, this is at index 0, 1, 2. So if I open this, this also has index 1. just length of 1, and this is after it has been added. Okay, so I can pick out one item by the index. That means I can come here and say CLG JS1 square bracket 1. Square bracket 1 means I want to console log the item at index 1 inside JSS1. So go to JSS1 array, pick out the item that is on index 1. So if I come here, this is 0, this is 1. But because we've added on shift, we've added push, the index will change now. This one will be at index 0, while this will be at index 1. So if I save it and come here, it's printing out David Sampson because I'm using index 1. If I go with index 0 and save it, now it's printing out Gambo at index 1. So you can print out or pick out an item from an array by their index. All right, I think we've said too much. We're going to end it here. Yeah, I just prayed. There was a day I was having a class and I forgot to record, but I will always record. I will not make that mistake again. Yeah, I've shared the link to the documentation. Does the array have a number limit? No, it doesn't have a number limit. Can arrays break? I want to understand what you mean by break. What is going to break it? How will it break? I'm trying to understand what the break means there. What if I want, yeah, we're going to leave that one. All right, guys. Any questions anymore? If there is no questions, we can actually end that. Next week class is going to be very important. Please try not to miss it. So, any question? If there is no question, I think we can end. What's the difference between to local uppercase? You can do it. Just try it. Try and see. JavaScript is all about doing.
Hello,
I'll
sir.
change. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, there's something they call out of bound in array. So I don't know. How does it apply in JavaScript? That's what I mean by array breaking. Does it mean that okay, what you are requesting or what you put is beyond the array? Can it accommodate anything? Is there nothing like out of bound where you are trying to add into array or collect from array in JavaScript?
I want to give a perfect example where I experienced that issue. I built a platform that allows users to do transactions. So users do transactions. Now, the company that I built the website for are not the owners of the financial platform. Like, I don't know how to do it, say it. So that's a different financial platform that is opening up their backend for this, my own company, to access their backend and allow their users perform transactions. So users are going to perform transactions, but users want to see their own transaction histories, what they did. But you know that the parent company that opened up its backend is going to have millions of transaction histories that were not even performed by users from the company I worked with. So, unshift method. Shift is actually the remover from the beginning, while on shift, I think that's just, yeah, the video will be ready tomorrow. So, in trying to fetch transaction histories for this particular company, I had to query all the transaction histories from the parent company, and that alone is too much for the server I was working with to handle. In that case, it broke. Yeah, it broke. So there can be But normally, if you are working with your own server, working with your own everything, it will not break. It doesn't break. Array doesn't have a limit. Yes, this is on the documentation. Find it. If you don't find it, assignment to come that will help you find it. How is transaction limit done on a mobile app? There are so many ways you can implement transaction limits. As a backend developer, you just set a number. You set a number. Let's say 1 million, maybe 1 million per day, or 1 million, what is it called? 1 million per week, whatever it is. Every transaction you do, you save a transaction history with the date. You're going to do this, we're going to do it, we'll see it. You save a transaction history with the date. So, because you know that there is no transaction that will not carry a date, what you then do is when a user sends an amount that they want to either withdraw or pay, or however your limit want to work in, let's use withdrawal in this case. Your users want to withdraw from the platform a particular amount, they will send you that amount. What you will do is find all the withdrawals that person has made for that particular date. So the front end may send you the date, or you can get the date automatically. JavaScript allows you to pick up today's date, current date and time. JavaScript allows you to do that. So the front end may send you the date. The back end may also pick up the date automatically. But if you find the array, you try to find the withdrawals. Each withdrawal, you add the amount together, assuming you have found because when you try to find transaction histories, they will come in form of an array. All of them will come in form of an array. So when you find it for that particular date, if the user has not performed any transaction for that date, the array is going to be empty. If the user has performed a transaction for that day, the array will either have 1 item or 2 items, as the case may be, depending on the number of transactions the user has performed for that day. So you pick up the array, add the whole amount together, add it. This is where higher array method comes in, which I said we're going to look at later. You add the whole amount together and then compare the amount with this current amount that this user is trying to withdraw now. If the amount he's trying to withdraw has exceeded your limit, you return a message. You have exceeded your limit. You can also go ahead and tell them, maybe you have not really exceeded the limit, but this amount will make you exceed the limit. So this is the amount you can withdraw. You cannot withdraw up to this amount. You can do that if you want. If that's how your system works too, you can. Arrays can't break. However, if you predefine the capacity of an array, you may not be able to add more than that capacity to it. Maybe this helps answer your question. Yes. You will use filter method to remove the specific item in question. Okay. Yeah, there are so many ways. Now, one thing you must understand as a backend developer is that whatever it is you can do, there are 3 ways of doing every particular thing. There are 3 different ways of doing every single thing. So a user might do it different, not user actually. A developer might do it differently from how you are doing it. It doesn't mean that what you are doing is wrong. Some people do it with less code. Some do it with more code. Now, there's this assumption that if you write less code to do some things, you become a senior developer. But I argue that's not true. As a matter of fact, a senior developer writes more code to do the same thing you are doing. You do more code. All right. So, any other question for me? Yes, it's fine. It is fine, Akani. Any question before we end today's class? If there is no question, please drop a thumbs up so that we can end it here. All right, but please, these are important class sessions. Don't miss them. Try as much as possible to learn and understand, but you don't have to cram anything. Just visit documentation. All right, guys. Bye. See you next week.